Hello.
Hi.
Hi,
Can you hear
Kevin.
me?
Hey.
How are you guys?
We're
I have
good.
been trying. Oh, I'm so glad to see you guys. People are starting to show up. I can see that now. Good. Hi, everybody. How are you?
Great.
Oh, let's see. Oh my God, Peter's here as well. Josh, yeah. This is gonna be really a good call. I'm so excited. How's everybody doing today? Awesome.
Great.
Well, I know you two are amazing. You two are always amazing. Sherry's always smiling, and Frank's just lucky to have her by his side all the time. I wanted to get a different change of scenery because I've been sitting in the house too long, so I came to a restaurant to have our call. Can everybody hear me, or do I need to go outside? Can everybody hear
No,
me still?
you're perfect.
Fabulous. I love being perfect. It makes me happy. Okay, so for those of you who do not know, today we are joined by two of my favorite human beings oh, you stop, you. Two of my favorite human beings, Frank and Sherri Candelario. This can be one of those disgusting love fests that happens all the time, just like blowing each other up left, right, and center. I love it. So what is that art piece behind you? Is that in your house?
That is our house. We're standing in. We'll move out of the way.
Oh, wow. That is beautiful.
We bought this from a semi-famous artist who's a Beatles fan, and he's fantastic. And Sherri and I were doing business in LA, and we were in a hotel, and it was on the wall, displayed by some guy named Hust. So after a couple trips and months went by, we finally said, we gotta buy this painting. We called him up, didn't connect, but then Sherri and I were vacationing in Kauai, and I saw on his Facebook page, he was a mile away from us painting. So we had him over for a glass of wine, did a deal, and we got I call it the Beatles meet Van Gogh, because it's kind of impressionistic,
Yeah.
meet the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper. You like it?
I love it. I think but I love art. I love the colors more than anything else. It's so good. But that story is great. The fact that you actually had him over for a glass of wine and then you made the deal happen. That's fabulous. You guys are so creative.
Well, it's, so many of our deals happen over coffee.
Right? Every time I call Sherri, guys, she's always having coffee. It doesn't matter what time of day I call her, she's always having coffee.
He cleaned up our counter because I have 3 different coffee pots. I have the espresso maker, I have the 2 to 4 cup, and then I have the big pot. And he's like, "Why do you have 3?" I said, "Don't touch these." So.
See, if Sherri ever lived Sherri, if you ever went to go live in like a minimalist apartment, whatever, you would have your bed, you'd have a dining table and coffee pots. That would still be that would be what happens. So let me go ahead and tell people who you are. Let me give you an actual introduction to who you are.
Hi, everybody. That's a good-looking group of people. Good-looking group.
Yes, they are. I only know good-looking people. And Michael. So then we have, here's the art. Oh, I love that bitch. He's so wonderful. Hi, Michael. Is he? Okay. He's on there. I know he's on there somewhere.
Hello, yes, I'm right here.
Oh, I miss you, honey. How you doing, baby?
I'm doing well. Hey, Frank, how are you?
Good to see you.
It's so good to see you. It's been too long. Hi, Sherri.
Hi, Michael. I miss you, honey. I really do.
Oh, I miss you guys too. That painting is beautiful. Mom's doing very well.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
Mom is doing well. Thanks for asking.
So the best part about doing these calls has been the fact that it just feels like a giant reunion every time we're here. Like people just come on. It was always someone different. Like we have who else? Where was Peter? Peter, are you here? Can you hear me? His screen's set off. I don't know. Hi, how are you, handsome?
Hi, how are you?
So this is do you guys? I don't know if you remember. This is Eva's husband, but I think
Yes,
you
we
guys are.
remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
So we
guys.
have several Hall of Famers on here right now. And I love catching up with you guys because you guys are always doing something fabulous. Everybody, like Frank, Sherri, you guys may not know this, but Peter and Eva just bought a group of houses in
Tucson.
Tucson. That's right, Tucson, Arizona, that they're trying to turn into some sort of shared housing model.
We do,
So-
yeah, we do.
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know Frank and Sherri, they started this this incredible vision about, I want to say 5 years ago. Am I wrong?
Years ago.
About 5 years.
5 years ago. And it has a touching story behind it. Oh my God. But they really have revolutionized the way so many of us have begun investing, because it's more about investing with a purpose, investing with a humanity behind it, investing with seeing real estate is not just properties, but as people, and giving people second chances and realizing that you can make a good in the world. And it came from so many amazing things. First of all, Frank and Sherri live in Seattle, which, if you don't know, is one of the hottest markets in North America, not just the United States, but North America. Very high price points. The barrier to entry to get into housing and their market is very challenging. But they were able to come up with a model that not only helped them get housing, but also triple rents so that they can actually cash flow in high-end markets. So Frank, Sherri, why don't you guys give us the lowdown? How does all this start? Tell us more.
You know, we like to say we were accidental real estate investors. By education and training, I'm a biotech patent counsel and a scientist, and been working, building biotechs in Seattle. Frank was in international marketing. And the short story was we were doing well in our careers, but I had adopted a little girl from Russia who'd done very well for many years, but when she was 16, 17, became addicted first to alcohol and drugs. And I'm a University of Washington medically trained scientist, so I'm one of those people, I think I can fix anything. You know, I can fix this, medication, treatment, did all of that. But part of the story, and this is where Frank comes in, is I would hospitalize her and put her in recovery homes. And very expensive recovery homes, but what I found out is the mantra for recovery homes is if you do anything wrong, anything, you don't do your dishes, you relapse, God forbid, you don't go to a meeting, they would put human beings, including my daughter, out on the curb in 15 minutes.
With all our belongings except for the valuables.
Yeah, and sometimes in the middle of the night. And Frank and I met on an elevator and got married 5 weeks later, and that was a different story. But at the same time we're getting married, we're chasing after how do we find Kate, who's homeless not once, twice, 12 times.
We were living in a high-rise downtown, and Kate would be underneath maybe possibly that bridge there, or right behind this building right there. She was in our neighborhood, but we would go out and look for her.
And she's 18, 19 years old, and we would go to the places where the 19-year-olds hung out, and Jacob, this is going to make you cry, because we'd find 75 hungry kids under a bridge. And that's when I decided to marry Frank, is he knew where the kids hung out because he used to go feed them. And so we went one night together and brought 25 pizzas looking for Kate, and she had just left. She found a warm place to stay that night. And fast forward, we're married, and it's never stopped eating at us that people were treated as disposable units, particularly children. And so our high-flying careers came to a crashing halt. My biotech company went bankrupt. Frank was in an industry that he was laid off. When I continued to work, I was one of 12 people after 90 people were let go. But we didn't know what day the company was going to end. So we decided to take a little bits of 401k money, and Dennis Blitz from IRA Club.
Dennis Blitz.
And we're on the IRA Club website right now. Like, that's how things evolve. We took our IRA money and we said, we're going to buy this old daycare center that we found. And we knew it was zoned for business, because zoning is everything in shared housing. And we're going to build the Nordstroms of recovery homes for kids like Kate. And of course, like anybody new at rehabbing real estate, we did our own work. We knocked down our own walls with sledgehammers. We painted each other. We went all kinds of crazy wrong. But what we found out, and we honestly believe this, when you do good, when you have a mindset of helping people, you want to do something positive, the doors of the universe open up for you. And we have seen this over and over and over again for 5 years. So
we're never surprised at the miracles that happen to us almost on a weekly basis.
They do. And we're going to tell you how in the middle of a pandemic, our business tripled. And, you know, because we're doing good. And so we ended up talking to the Veterans Administration, because Frank's child of a vet.
My dad was a U.S. Marine.
He grew up on Army bases, and we said, vets have a high degree of PTSD and addiction. Let's start with that population. And we found out that, you know, they were all for us, and we met with them a dozen times. And the reason we're telling you the failures is because failure is wonderful. Failure pushes you in a different direction than you ever expected. The vet organization, 10 of them from Olympia, our state capital, came to open up our new house for vets. They gave us 2 vets. They never paid us. In fact, the first vet they gave us had MRSA, lice, bed bugs, kids, and men in the house and destroyed our newly remodeled house. We still never got paid, but it was okay because the next thing that happened, the second vet happened to have been a woman who liked to embezzle money. She was a vet, but she had been in prison for that. And we connected with, and this is very important for you guys, the housing specialist. That is the word. Every organization has a housing specialist. The housing specialist for the prison system. And he came out and met Frank and I, and he thought we were a little bit wet behind the ears, but he said, you know what? He said, if you'll house Laura, who is very sweet, and 7 more like her, I'll pay you per bed from the state of Washington. And by this time, we're looking at this big debt hole we dug out.
So we bought an expensive, at that time it was expensive in Seattle, and we figured we put in $10,000, $20,000, $80,000 later and lots of mistakes. Yeah.
And we just,
so we're a little bit tight. We're going, okay, this, we got to get a little better return. And that's when we met the Department of Corrections.
And it was funny because Frank and I do, we communicate by telepathy, sometimes by just a little bit of a wink and a nod. Well, this former Jesuit priest was standing talking to us. And I said, well, how will these people pay? He goes, no, I'll pay you. And I said, you will? And he goes, yes. He said, I'll give you $500 a person. So this back 5 years ago. And he said, you can put 2 people in the bedroom. In this house, you could get 10 people in. And Frank and I are looking at each other and we said, okay, we'll do that. We had no idea what we were doing. But we took in this lovely group of women. The first ones were the Golden Girls. And we said, we don't even know how to run a house for former meth addicts who went to prison who happened to have stolen cars and, committed robberies and DUIs.
Except for what we learned from Kate, we are not from this world, and I love to remind people that, except for that marijuana cigarette in 1974 at a Led Zeppelin concert, I don't have a lot of experience there.
He still feels guilty
and
about
our
that.
Assumption, and I'll tell you real quick, we love to break in on each other, and you're welcome to ask questions anytime you want. But here's the problem. I had attitude towards this population. What population? People with felonies, been to prison, and addiction. All right, they're the last human beings on planet Earth I want anything to do with. I was that person. So was most of America. That's why we have this problem. All of a sudden now, 400 people later, and 6 beautiful homes. We're housing over 50 people at a time. We're going to be doubling our houses soon. These are the most amazing human beings I've ever met. Wonderful human beings who are struggling not only with everyday life like we all do, but they also have this struggling with addiction. But what we found is if you put people in beautiful homes in safe neighborhoods without pimps and drug dealers outside your door, where the neighbors accept you, to where you keep it zen and tranquil and calm and quiet, and you use supervision from the departments that send the people to you, it's a winning thing. In fact, after 4 months, the Department of Corrections came to us and said, something's very unusual going here because we're sending you people. And if you do good in prison, you get rewarded with work release. Now, if you do really good in work release, you get rewarded with early release, saving the state of Washington $79,000 a year, okay? And they place them in our house. But usually with the Department of Corrections, they had 70% on early release go back to prison. Go back to prison. And they said, you guys are very strange because after 6 months, we haven't had any recidivism rate. So all of a sudden, we're realizing that we kind of found our way into this amazing environment and business model that if you create, there's 100 things you got to create, but if you create them all just right, you actually have a huge success rate in recovery and getting people off supervision.
It's interesting because I'll tell you almost the end of the story before we go much further. We're happy to entertain questions, but the people we have housed in the last 4 years have been women who are living in their cars so they can pay child support for their children. They are kids aging out of the foster care system. Significant LGBTQ community from prison, because when people are rejected, and we've had people tell us we were rejected by family, and they're out on the streets when they're 13, 14, 15, that's where you end up. We are now housing disabled veterans, and we're going to tell you the story about our Charlie, who moved in with us 3 days ago, who's 76, who spent the last 10 years in prison after flying airplanes in Vietnam. You know, what we have come to learn as a society is that it is any human being can be a step away from homelessness. I knew I was going to sneeze.
Bless you.
Oh, thank you. But, you know, we're going to kind of step back is in that first 6 months, we ended up buying almost $1.8 million worth of homes. One was in foreclosure. One was, you know,
On the market a long time.
and owner finance, and we remodeled 2 of the 3. And then we developed this amazing program of teaching people with corporate principles how to manage our homes for us, because obviously we can't take care of 50 high needs people. We found out when we had 18 that was too many. So how do we manage to grow an organization? Frequently I'll get an email from somebody who's heard us speak and say, we want to introduce you to Joe Smith here. He wants to do a clean and sober home. And Frank and I always write back, we don't do clean and sober homes.
It's not that simple.
It's not that simple. Are you thinking of a clean and sober home where you buy a home and you go on Craigslist and you put 6 or 8 people in recovery who are unattended to be in the house? That's not what we do. What we do is we have developed relationships with the people who manage these human beings, and they pay us. So for example, we talk about what happened in a pandemic. We happen to own an Airbnb in San Diego.
We thought Airbnb was a wonderful, fantastic investment.
I did get to finish the price.
Go ahead.
$1.2 million. Guess what happens when the pandemic hits? You get a letter from the association that no human beings are allowed in your condo until the governor allows otherwise. So those $5,000 a month payments, which were mortgage and everything else which had been covered for years, all of a sudden they were our issue. And they remained our issue for several months. And at the same time, we're like, boy, this is
I
great.
don't ever go to it through Facebook, honey.
What's that?
I did it through the Investor Party app.
It's not coming
Sorry.
up. Josh, can you, or whoever's speaking,
I was unmuted, sorry.
Oh,
Dad.
okay.
And so what happened with us is come the first part of March, we've now developed a huge relationship with people who supply us with people and pay us. They push a button and $30,000 a month shows up in our checking account for certain people and another $700 a month for other people. So, you know, we have these huge contracts we've developed because we found out you don't work directly with the human, work directly with the people who manage those human beings. And we're talking to Department of Corrections and another one of our vendors who is not affiliated with prison. And we said, we just bought a brand new house in January. Whoever wants the house, we're happy to put your people in. They said, we'll call you back in 3 days. We doubled a fixed contract from $15,000 to $30,000, just like that. And then we had some more bed space, and we were talking to Department of Corrections, and they were still paying out $500 a month. And they said, we've got some high risk people. We want to get them out of prison because of the COVID. Would you take some? I said, I'd be happy to, but not at your price. They said, what is your price? I said, well, I think the minimum we could do would be $700 a person. They said, okay, they'll come to you on an ankle bracelet with supervision and you won't have to do a thing. So they said, how many can you take? I told Frank, I said, I felt like one of those vendors in the Turkish market, you know, how much for the little girl, you know? And I said, yeah, we'll take 6. And they said, great, they're gonna come for 6 months to a year. So you do the math, you know, six months for 7 people at $700 a piece. And that on top of our fixed contracts. And that's how we're operating now. And why do people give us business? You know, you're going, well, can I do that? Well, you can, of course you can, but running any type of shared housing, and Jacob and I talked about this at great length, it's not just, hi Irene, darling, I love you. I'm sorry, I had to do that. You know, running any type of business.
You're allowed to interact with everyone. That's more than allowed, okay? This is your show right now. You do what you want.
Okay. And I'm going to tell you an Irene story in a second because it transformed our life and you don't even know this. You know, anybody can do real estate. Anybody can do real estate. You can watch a bunch of YouTube videos and buy a house and rehab it, or you can buy a house somewhere. But what you don't know is what kind of insurance do I need? What type of contract do I need? What type of house rules do I need? Once you have the sophistication to manage a house, people come knocking on your door, and we're going to share what some of those, key aspects are. But when we started out, we didn't have any of that. So we trusted our people. And I know, Jacob, you've done this too.
Mm-hmm.
You ask your people, what do you need? We had our house rules to our people, and we said, this is sample house rules that were given to us. What do you think works? What doesn't? What should we add in? And then to kind of make it a little bit better, we knew a woman who had spent 15 years in prison. And believe me, when you've been in prison 15 years, you didn't go in for something minor. And we said, can you rewrite our house rules? She said, how much will you pay me? And Frank goes, $100. She pulled that $100 out of his hands and almost took his fingers off. She goes, I'll have them back for you by email. And we've used those ever since. So trust the people you're trying to house to help you along. Now I got to tell you about an Irene story. This is going to set the tone. This changed everything we ever did for our whole business and everybody we ever teach. Irene, I want you to hear this. Irene was in our second class that we taught. Our classes grew where we were having 50 people in them and teaching every month. And we are teaching again, and we'll tell you how to get access to us. But Irene said, I didn't really want to take real estate classes. My son bought me the package and made me do it. But after spending 3 days with you and Frank, I realized that I can ask to get a home. I can ask to get a business. I can ask for a vendor because it's not about me. I'm doing it for someone else.
I remember that like yesterday, Irene.
We quote you all the time. So you had an impact on us. I wanted to let you know that. I see you there. It's a huge impact. And
I want to give you a quick little overview. The way I see it, this is a whole new age of investing, in my opinion. It's not just investing. It's not trying to go to the county and find out who passed away yesterday so you can contact their spouse and get a house. This is about investing, get a return, but serve. And there's never been a better time in the industry we're in, because the vulnerable populations of the world, the only thing they can afford, if they can afford it, especially if they have a felony on their record, doesn't matter how much money they make. After the background check, it's impossible. So all of a sudden, and also they don't have a lot of money. So if they can find a place, it's usually in the bad part of town. It's usually where there's so much temptation out your door that you end up going right back to the world that you were in. So what we realized is that Sherri and I, oh, what's going on?
It's okay. I shrunk you guys. Sorry, Jacob, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I did something and I shrunk everything. So
We're kind of new on Zoom, you guys.
let me see if I can get you.
No, you guys are doing great.
Something goes wrong and it wasn't my fault.
Okay. Keep talking.
I think Jim was also, I don't know if he's there or not, he's on the same protocol. He was also in your second class, first or second class, I think. So just so you know. So we'll say hi.
I got it.
Okay, should we keep going? Okay, so here's the deal. And if you look on our website, when we got into this business, we realized, especially through Kate, it's like we have a big criticism about the recovery industry. And I say this, beware of the industrial recovery complex, because it's a $29 billion business, and many, I want to be careful, many people who have recovery houses, let's just say a lot of them are substandard. There was an article, and write this down, in the Seattle Times in 2018. The article was written and titled "From Homelessness to Hovel." And what they did is they followed someone who actually was in Seattle. They were homeless under a tarp, under a bridge, but they got them a voucher from the Department of Corrections, right? And they put that person into, with a $500 voucher, into a, quote, recovery house. Okay, so she's getting a $500 voucher, and we're getting $500 vouchers for our residents. Our houses are beautiful houses, right on a bus line. All the, off-street parking, safe neighborhood, okay? Guess where she was? That same $500 voucher paid by taxpayer money was going to a slumlord, rats, bed bugs, broken water heater, cracked windows with snow outside. And it was showing the difference that this is not right. And if you look on our website, there's a beautiful picture of Sherri in her red blazer standing right next to the governor of the state of Washington, the governor of the state of Washington. And he is signing a bill into law that we helped create that says within 3 years, because this is what's happening. The recovery industry is like the wild, wild west. Anyone can have one. There are hundreds, there are zillions of them out there. But what's happening is all the money that's going to stop the addiction problem, they're realizing that all the money for treatment is worthless if you don't have a good recovery environment, right? Do you agree with me? So what's happening is they're waking up and saying all that money's being wasted, but we can make it work if we create standards, national standards in the state of Washington that we've adopted. We were the first in the state to receive them. But he's signing a bill into law that says within 3 years, there'll be no more taxpayer money for substandard, non-certified homes. Can you, and there are 500 recovery homes in the state of Washington, can you see what kind of unbelievable opportunity that is? So it's not that hard to get the substandard, but you have to have integrity. You have to show fiduciary responsibility. A lot of people who run these homes, I want to be nice. People, maybe they're trying their best, but a lot of these homes are run down and they don't have the business model we have. Whereas if the water heater breaks, it's fixed the next day. The toaster breaks, the heater, whatever. We run our house like a business and we work on our brand. We make sure that everything functions in the house, inside and out, because when things don't function in the house, you create tension and anxiety. And that's what brings on relapses. So what I'm trying to show you is go to that. You'll see us right next to the governor of Washington, because more and more around the United States of America, it's going to be recognized that the people who have good quality, beautiful homes, who meet the national standards, they will rise to the top of the list when it comes to that $29 billion that's out there for recovery housing industry. So I want to get you excited and realize the monstrous tidal wave of change that's happening right now.
And Peter, I've got your question about who pays. So 60% of our clients are paid for up to 2 years by yeah, like a big chunks of money. And we started with 90-day vouchers. We have a handful of those, but most of the relationships we have now are very, very long-term. And we also build in a fee to pay our people who help us in our homes, because I was starting to say, this is how you do it. We train people who have lived with us, who have done very well, to be house leaders. And that level of, responsibility, make sure because we have had, to be honest, we've grown. I've talked about foster children. We've also had bank robbers. We've had some high net worth, I guess, in prison lingo, prisoners come in. And in fact, one of the guys who runs one of our houses spent 35 years in prison. So we are believers we see it every day. We are believers in the power of a human being to transform their life. This man has never used a drug. He's spent obviously 35 years in prison. Like he said, he was a violent teen. Now he's in his 50s. He had the wherewithal when one of our people took fentanyl, a very bad drug, to administer Narcan to this man, save his life, get him in an ambulance. And he looked at us when we called. I said, how do you know how to do this? You've never used a drug in your life. He said, I owe you guys so much for accepting me. He's lived with us now for a year. He goes, I'll do anything for you.
Another thing you can do is, if you look on our website, we have numerous videos. And one of my favorite one is the bus tour that we conducted when we had, I think 50 or 60 people on a bus. They pull into our nice, quiet neighborhood. They unload, your mom, and all these investors, because they can't believe the miracle that we have. And they have to see in person our residents, because we're more like an academy. Listen, if you're on the inside, you have options. You can either self-improve, you can take your school, get your education, try to get a college degree, learn skills, or you can just play your Xbox and just do your time. And especially when it comes to the women's side, you have to, you just don't come to our house. First of all, your supervisor has to say, what have you done? If you request Kate's house, what have you done to deserve a Kate's house? And then they have to write an essay to us. Because if we were Bill and Melinda Gates, we would house everybody. But at these $600,000 homes, we don't have dozens and dozens of them, except we're raising capital now to do that. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if you look at our website of the bus tour, you'll see some of our residents, and these are wonderful, grateful human beings. And you can walk in, just like 2 days ago, I had someone to our houses. We've had Senator Patty Murray send her office staff to our house. We've had Congressman Adam Smith send his congressman. We've had the owner of Beneficial Bank, the owner, walk through our houses. They want to see this miracle. And it's awesome because we don't warn our people that we have VIPs coming. Our houses are always immaculate. Beautiful, the yards are beautiful because that's a big part of being a good neighbor and being accepted into the neighborhood. So, you know, I'm just trying to give you a picture of, people think, oh, it's going to be Animal House, you're going to have crazies running the house. It's not. There are so many people out there, and if you are able to pick the right ones who are convince you that they are ready for recovery, they're ready to work to get their children back, they're ready to work with the judges, they're ready to get back into society, you grab them, you put them in the house, and 2-3 years later, they're still wonderful residents.
So I have to laugh. Peter asked how long people usually stay. They stay, we try to get them to leave. And if they stay too long, we hire them. So we have 9 employees now. And we always have people we're training. And so, for example, with one contract we have to keep people out of prison, they come to us from the hospitals. We have people stay 2 years. And some of these stellar people say, I can't stay in recovery unless I continue to stay in this environment. And we tell them, you know, we're going to train you to be a house leader then. And that's how we do it. And some people don't want that structure because we are structured. You have a curfew. You know, you have to get along. We are not a house with 8 disparate people or 10 disparate people living together. No, we're having community meals together. They're going to meetings together. And not everybody is justice involved. You know, Frank's going to give you the background of what we're doing right now. Is we've had, we're offered 100 veterans, 100 veterans. We don't have room for 100 veterans. So we are doing a syndication right now. We just filed it last week. And I don't know, can you read this? If you want, I'm going to give you 2 websites. Does that show up? SharedHousingSolutions.com.
We'll put it in the
Shameful promotion.
But here's the deal. We're also doing free seminars on there. So if you go to the registration and pop in your email, we're doing some 1-hour topics because over the years, we've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of people and had hundreds of students. And you know, obviously there's a reason we're not able to connect with anybody anywhere more. And we don't want to lose that. We love it. And I'm reading all these comments from all of you guys, and we miss and love all of you. So we said, you know what, let's go on for free because we are still, you know, teaching here in Washington State. I'm on the state board that reports to the governor's office. You know, I told you about that little day job of practicing law as a scientist. I'm speaking about fair housing laws and contract law to other recovery home operators under that bill that we had passed under our state organization that licenses homes. And Frank, by the way, inspects homes to make sure they're up to speed. So we went from that horrible daycare rehab to the only way that you're going to change the world is get out there and change government. As painful as it is, you know, to change government, you have to have a story. You have to live your story. And that's what we help people do. We help you figure out what your vision is for your story and how are you going to live that out. And Leonard, oh my gosh, Leonard Cardenas, I love you too.
Leonard on?
Oh. Yes, Leonard. I know. I'm looking at all of these guys. It's just incredible.
I have bad eyesight. I can't see.
That's okay. We're going to just sit here and read the chat box.
Yeah.
For a
look
minute.
at that.
What I want you all to do right now is I want you to look deep in your heart. And if you had unlimited money and unlimited real estate and the no is not anywhere in your vernacular, type in the chat box, what population of people would you lift a hand up to? And Peter, you did ask me if we had COVID in the house. Yes, we did. We had 2 cases. And, you know, we were very proactive because we're housing 55 people right now in 6 houses, but we are getting ready to get a whole bunch more housing. And we were bleaching countertops and scrubbing things. And we had a gentleman come to us, an older guy in his mid-50s with COVID, had another 50-something-year-old guy who's lived with us for years. he lent guy number one his cell phone and they both caught it. What happened is the health department got involved with us, and we talked about our bleaching procedures and everything we were doing. They pulled both gentlemen out. They both went to the hospital. Then they both went to a specialized facility for the rest of their quarantine and came back. And that was in April, never had another case. You know, we're still very careful.
Yeah, we've been blessed. We've been blessed on that one. That
because
could have been
to
bad.
be honest, in March, when we doubled that contract, they were sending us people from jail in groups of 5, some with tape on their feet. They were not
even shoes,
not
just
even
a nasty
shoes.
old sweatshirt with nothing.
And there was nowhere to get them clothing, because remember this pandemic, there was nowhere to get food. We had never fed our people before because all our people had been working people. At one point, we had women making $40 an hour working on high rises. Now we have people without food and clothing. And so Frank and I managed to create relationships for food deliveries. And then Frank went in his closet and gave the clothes off his back literally to some of these people. And then we were calling St. Vincent de Paul, the church, who has helped us for years with donations. And of course, they can't get into their clothing bank. So those women got their husbands to take the clothes out of their closets. And so you wonder what happened to these people, because I think we ended up taking in about 25 over a 4-week period. Some of them came in, looked at the house, said, hey, this is cool, I'm going for cigarettes, and they never came back. You know, of course, there was a warrant out for their arrest immediately. But some of these guys who hadn't had a house loved the fact of being nurtured in community. And we're not talking about young men. We're talking about people in their 30s, 40s, 50s who've been around, been doing this for years. They're in college now. One of them, we are setting up to be a new house manager when he graduates from his program. You know, we're pretty flexible. We have moved people to 3 different houses to find a fit because, you know, Frank's Mr. Camp Director. If you look at our website, he was always...
He may have a PhD in medicine, but I used to be an executive director of a camp, right? And what does a camp director do? He makes sure that all the buildings work, the toilets flush, the water flows, and keeps that up. And he also deals with personalities. Like when Bobby and Johnny don't get along in that cabin over there, I say, Bobby, come over here. That's not such a nice cabin. Look at the view from this cabin. Look at that view. Wouldn't you rather be in this cabin? Yes, I really would. Okay, so the beauty of our business model, which I want to talk about briefly, is that we have so many options just to move people around, you know, and because it's, again, keeping that zen and tranquility in the house is what supports recovery. But I think what makes our business model so important for everyone, because I just met a young couple who are going to try to, we're going to work with them and get them their own houses. But they started out with a brilliant idea because, listen, I do not want to buy an expensive house and rent to a husband, wife, 2 kids, and a dog. You know why? Because the cash flow is going to be this much. And when Boeing starts going down because of their max 8, whatever, he loses his job and we got to pay the mortgage.
Or the rent moratorium.
And so like this couple I'm working with, they came up with density, and that's a great idea. But what they did is they changed their house. They just crammed all these bedrooms in because they wanted to work with students, okay? Students from China. And, you know, you walk in, it's beautiful. There's so many bedrooms and bathrooms and this and that. But the problem is now you have a house that's going to be very difficult to sell, okay? And I'm a real estate agent too. So, you know, our business model is brilliant, I think, and it's accidentally brilliant. What we want is the classic international investment, which is a single family home in the United States of America, in an appreciating neighborhood, in a safe neighborhood. And that's what we want. And we want the house to be in tip-top condition at all times. We want a single family home. We don't add bedrooms to the garage. We don't tack on weird stuff. We want a house that I could sell tomorrow, and be in selling condition I don't want to rent to the husband, wife, 2 kids, and a dog, but I sure want to be able to sell to a husband, wife, 2 kids, and a dog. Did you see what we're trying to do? What we want is, our goal is just not to pack people in. Our goal is to put houses in appreciating neighborhoods, get huge cash flows. Some of our best accounts are paying us $850 a bed. You times 2, times 4 or 5 bedrooms, and you can just see our cash flow. But let's say the world came apart, something happened. I could sell that house. We don't want to be stuck with an oddball looking house. So what we love, and the other thing is when you have the cash flow that we have, we don't have to go out and look for cheap houses. The last house we bought was this beautiful house with a peekaboo view of the Puget Sound. Right next to us were $1 million houses who had the view. And so Sherri and I, we wanted that house, 500, and they wanted 530. We offered them 540. Because when you're in the business that we are in and the cash flow is so tremendous, especially over the year, the next 10 years, we don't worry about price. We say, what do we want in our portfolio? We want a house with curb appeal. We want trophies on our wall, beautiful homes. Isn't that exciting? Whereas a lot of investors, you got to go and find rundown houses and put the minimum in, make them renter ready, you know? Well, that's awesome for them. But what Sherri and I love about this business is, look, if you've worked really hard on the inside and you're trying to self-improve and change your life and you are rewarded with early release, we believe that you deserve to have a beautiful home in a safe, beautiful neighborhood.
We took in a man yesterday who has multiple college degrees, had a huge business, he's gorgeous too. I mean, I don't want to offend you, but I always have our people take pictures and send them to me when the guys show up. And all the women were just like, oh my God, you would never expect him to be coming to our home. He'd been homeless for 4 years. And Frank actually took him out last night and bought him toiletries and got him set up with food and everything else. And, you know, bright, articulate, he'll be fine. I want to read some of these. So, you know, some of the groups are LGBTQIA youth. Yes.
Awesome. What a niche. What a beautiful niche that is.
Homeless families, low income and homeless, elderly, yes, and LGBTQ, elderly and veterans. We're going to tell you some veteran stories here. Haiti, veterans and single moms. We had so many single moms. Many got their kids back. Elderly, recovering and homeless vets, homeless LGBTQ, all those kids under the bridge that Kate and I used to find. Elderly, recovering and homeless vets, homeless LGBTQ, nonviolent marijuana drug criminals. You know, we've taken meth and heroin addicts for 5 years. And in 5 years.
That's our wheelhouse.
Yeah, I know. In fact, even Department of Corrections Housing said, guys, do you think you could have picked an easier group? You know? And in 5 years and hundreds of people, we've only had 2 people who got somewhat aggressive. Usually they call us, say, we relapsed, we need to leave, we don't want to be here. And we tell them we're medically approved treatment homes, we're going to get you medical care for this. And so we have a lot of our people are on Suboxone and methadone. Okay, and Elise, hi Elise. Do you always house 2 people per room and what's the minimum size? Yes, we do.
The national standards, see, this is a beautiful thing because you have these national standards and they will guide you on how to build and on how to offer your house. For instance, the national standard is 50 square feet per bed. So most bedrooms in a single family home are at least 10 by 10. That means 2 beds. In the rare occasion where the bedroom's too small, that's where we put the house manager as an extra reward. But we have seen houses where Kate, and see again, we learned everything what not to do from Kate. We would find her in recovery homes that were so disgusting. And
not when we put her in.
We didn't put her in there, but she would end up there. Okay, no, Sherri would put her in places that are $3,000 a month. But when she would try to find a recovery home, some of those bedrooms were so small and stacked 3 high. In fact, we were just looking at another house potentially to buy. It was a recovery house for sale, but we didn't want anything to do with it. Bad neighborhood. But can you imagine 3 or 4 bunk beds high?
Yeah, so that's what they do.
So that's how we just follow the guidelines. And I want to show you a picture of our.
Well, let me give the backstory. Okay. So we were offered 100. he always wants to have his face.
It's like this. Honey, can I talk? Honey, I want to say something.
We got a call from the VA. And they said, would you take a gentleman coming out of Department of Corrections? And he's maybe disabled, and he's 76 years old. And so his daughter will pay his way, so he wasn't coming on VA funding, and she'll be in touch with you. His daughter called me. She's a police officer in your neck of the woods, Leonard. She's actually in Houston. And Dad can't go live with her at 76. He actually had COVID in prison because she has guns in the house being a police officer. So he had to find a home with strangers. He spent the last 10 years in prison. 66 to 76. And I tend to say, who puts some 66-year-old Vietnam vet who flew helicopters in prison? He didn't kill anybody. He brandished a gun one time. Unfortunately, it was at a police officer, but it was through a car window, because he has PTSD so bad, he goes back to his helicopter days. So, we're sitting here, mental illness, triggered behavior. Nobody looked at that. They just threw him away for 10 years. Then they called us and said, fix this mess. And so Frank actually drove down to the bus station because nobody from the VA was going to pick him up because it was 5 o'clock, and picked him up and took him to his house. And we've got a woman who spent 15 years in prison, Christiane, who's the sweetest thing in the world. And so she knows what it's like. And so she shows up, and she doesn't give socially distanced hugs. She hugs people and she gets them settled. We've been using Christiane as our welcome committee. So, you want to know how we do this? We use other people. We have lots of other people. And Christiane is the one who says, do you need anything to eat? Let me find food for you. You need clothes? Let's drive to the clothing bank. Oh, you need to go to the bank to open up a bank account? I will drive you on Monday. That's her job. We call her the Goodwill Ambassador. We want to show you his picture because...
So I want to share, imagine 34 years, all my friends thought Frank is so lucky. He's got a wonderful high-paying job, sexy job, fashion shows in China, tour business in Europe, board meetings in New York City. It did nothing for me. This is what I do now every day. Sherri and I serve. And look at this gentleman here. He is so deserving of a beautiful home, because if they had picked the wrong home, he'd be in the bad part of town. He'd have horrible living conditions, and we're treating him like a king. So when we talk about the business that we do, imagine waking up every day to grateful people. We're housing over 50 people. I wake up to 50 grateful people every day. And I'm not saying working a W-2 job is not a good thing to do. It's wonderful. But I just want you to get excited, because people who buy real estate and own real estate, you can put that to some good use and make a huge difference in people's lives. And so we just want to share and get you as excited as we are at this amazing business opportunity.
It's also so interesting because a lot of the programs, the few that are out, they will generally take you that are surrounded by all sorts of problems, drugs on the corner, poverty everywhere. That doesn't help them out in this situation. It actually keeps them back. One thing I love about the model that we're, which I have adopted, putting people in homes in great neighborhoods, because that really makes all the difference. They feel safe. It is amazing.
Your voice was fading out, Jacob. And it wasn't just
Well,
me.
repeat it, because we want to hear it.
We want to hear it.
Right up our
Yeah, Jacob, like you're we can hear Frank and Sherri perfectly, but we can't hear you at all. It's like you're just like this little muffled thing in the background.
It shows your mic is off.
I have it muted when you're speaking. I am muted.
Oh, okay. I thought you
Still
were...
can't hear you, Jacob.
No, that's wonderful. I love these comments. And one of the things we found, and it's my dear friend Stephanie, hi Stephanie, many people come to us with mental health issues. People use drugs because they're trying to cover up from some pain. And we have heard stories. We have a gentleman right now. What country is there now from?
Liberia.
We have people.
Oh my gosh.
We have children who were forced into slavery, who murdered people.
Forced into fighting in a civil war. And if they didn't do it, they'd have their family killed. So imagine an 8 to 10-year-old boy carrying a gun, being told some horrific things to do with that gun. And the PTSD is unbelievable.
So everybody comes to us with mental health issues. So again, this is our team. So we do run a slush fund because we're making triple rents. Our average house payment's $2,400, and we're pulling in about $7,000 to $8,000 a month per house. But what we do is we pay our people. Outside of paying ourselves, which we didn't for years because we just are trying to shovel it into more.
Investing back into
we're investing back into the housing. But we paid people by giving them free rent. And we have 2 people who are on salary with free rent. And they handle the mental health issues. And I'll tell you, we don't have them that often where they're serious. We had one recently that was serious, and the woman had lived with us for 7 months and did great. Then all of a sudden she started having mental health issues because she started drinking, and it triggered her mental health issues, and they were serious. And our people convinced her, because it was on a Saturday, to sleep with Christiane, sweet Christiane. She slept on Christiane's floor so she wouldn't be alone. Christiane drove her to the hospital and stayed with her all day while she got an assessment, not once, but twice. She was hospitalized for a couple of weeks. They adjusted her meds. We moved her to a new house. We do move people around a fair amount because we sometimes think a change of geography is good. And, you know, I've got reports. She just came back yesterday. She's doing great. So our people are bought in, that we all come together and help each other. And of course we incentivize them with salaries and free rent, but they wouldn't take these small salaries and free rent if they didn't believe in the mission. So it's really, really important to know that you're not going to do this by yourself. We managed the first couple of houses by ourselves, but by the time we had 3 houses and 20 people, we knew we needed help. So you definitely want to find people to help you. You know, we're going to take some more questions.
Yeah,
and
I
guess
questions, if that's okay.
one of the things we got is you didn't get to see Charlie's face. So here it is. I'm going to do it right there. This dear man, and I talk to his daughter all the time, didn't have any ID, didn't have a driver's license, had money, you know, because
he had checks.
Can't deposit them in banks. So, you know, when you get into any business where you're helping people, you have to realize that if you can help put those wheels on your people, the wheels of a bank account, the wheels of cars, transportation, Uber cars, clothing, food, they become pretty middle class pretty fast. You know, we've seen a huge amount of success stories over the years of people that once they figure out, you know, what's the difference? We figured out in the first year that most people who are incarcerated never had a bank account. Why? They were told by their families of origin, don't trust banks. So they carried that down. I went through a thing where I helped 40 people open a bank account one year, you know, and they were making good money, but they didn't have anything to show for it. Well, if you don't have a bank account, you run through your money real quickly. Then all of a sudden they're getting debit cards and they're saving money and they're able to move on to an apartment or a house. So these these are some of the things that, you know, these are the basics. So I always say, take a step back. What do you tell your teenage child when they're going off to college? This is what you need. And that's what you do. Treat them all like young adults.
We're so lucky. We've been doing this so long. We learn all the tricks, you know, what to do, what not to do. But for instance, originally when we had a dozen people, they'd have cash or a check. You know how long it took me to chase people down to get 12 checks or cash?
It's 21 days.
It would take 21 days, and then you start all over again. Sherri has it down to a science. And also, to show fiduciary responsibility, we don't touch any money, because many people who run these houses, they like to skim the money, and if the water heater goes out, why should I fix it? Because it comes out of my pocket. We don't do that. Our business model is more like Disneyland. We keep it up. And when that brand gets around, that's when people knock our door down. That's why we're the best in the state at what we do. But for instance, Sherri decided, we have a top level CPA guy, just the sharpest guy in the world. He used to work for the IRS, and he does all our collection. And first thing Sherri does is, when you get here, go get yourself a debit card. And so every day on the 2nd or 3rd of the month, bing, bang, boom. Imagine 52. We have, out of the 52 people, how many are on a
dozen?
We have a dozen who are self-paid. So the dozen, you know, at between $700 and $850, whoosh, right in. And then the other 40 people, direct deposit into our accounts. So, you know, imagine over 50 people, averaging $700 to $850 a month, bing, bang, boom.
This business is so doable. We have a friend who's housing 150 people, all self-pay, and she collects them all herself. Oh, yes, it is recorded. Is this recorded, Jacob? Or is this just a question in the chat box? Yes. So,
Yes, it is. Can you hear me now if I do this?
Hi, Brenda
Oh
and
my
Andy.
God, this is ridiculous. I have to be on my cell phone and my headphone at the same time. It's on the computer, but we're making it work. Yes, it's being recorded. But what I want to make sure we get to.
The hardest thing to do is rise above the class you were born into.
Yeah.
Frank and I talked about we were talking about opportunity. So, you know, I do have a PhD in medicine from #1 medical school, and I practice patent law. That's kind of high in the food chain. My mother dropped out of high school. My dad barely made it through high school. Both of them didn't think college was anything people should do because that was the class they were in. And I told Frank it was only because I had people recognize that I did school pretty good, you know, that I was able to get tons and tons of scholarships and financing and funding to go as far as I did educationally. But we were talking about this morning is we're now in a country where that's almost impossible to catapult above classes like that without support. So I think if those of us, you know, I'm kind of a believer, I wouldn't be here without those people who said, Sherri, here's a scholarship, come to my school. You know, without those people who groomed me to do something bigger, I wouldn't be here. And that drives me and Frank just as much. Same thing, grew up on military bases. He didn't have money.
We both came from modest backgrounds.
Yeah, he calls it modest. I call it broke.
Okay, that too.
You know, and we, you know, but it's true. Let's be honest where we came from. But you know what? It's up to us who have managed to come up with a plan on how to do life to lift up those people who don't have parents who are willing to help, who, like you, Jacob, whose children are ending up on the street with needing a home. You know, everyone, if you watch the videos on our other website, which I'm going to show right now, if you haven't seen it, here it is, and Jacob can do it. This is the nonprofit arm, KatesHouseFoundation.org. So, and we're going to talk a little bit about nonprofits versus for-profits, because we do have a nonprofit arm. But you can never put the houses you purchase in the nonprofit. Why? Because no one's ever going to give you money. They're not going to allow you to buy more houses. You can't refinance them. So why do we have a nonprofit? Well, Jacob will tell you, Lowe's just gave him carpet. We have not collected money through the nonprofit, just small amounts. But what we have done with the nonprofit is when you have a nonprofit, you have first dibs on buying homes through FHA that are in foreclosure at a discount. The other thing with a nonprofit you can do is apply for $1 million grants. And we have started writing grant applications. So I want to clarify that because for many of our former students are on this call. And we always have that question, do I need a nonprofit? No, don't go get a nonprofit. Use the money to get a house. One of our houses is a rental, it's rent to own. But when you get a chance to get a nonprofit, that's fine. But it's, you know, setting up your legal framework, and you're talking from somebody who's been doing law for 30 years, it's not that critically important. The most important thing to do is your vision. That's why I asked you guys what you wanted to do. Because once you have a vision nugget, once you have that nugget in your brain of this is what I want to do, then that drives you, then that opens up the doors for everything. You know, Jacob, we had the blessing and honor of watching Jacob develop his vision in our class a year ago, October. We were in Las Vegas and I made him sit down and write a mission statement. And look at him now, he's opening his second house right now. He's doing investor party. He's somebody I dearly love. I love you, Jacob. You know, you're frozen right now, but that's okay. You'll watch the recording. You know, how do I love Jacob? I know his heart. And that's the thing is when you get your vision, it's got to come from in here. You know, don't think people who flip homes are happy. You know, and don't think people who are putting a husband, wife, 2 kids, and a dog in California or the West Coast are happy, because they're both, our whole coast is on an eviction moratorium. Nobody's paying rent. You have that $600,000 home, and those people that are sitting there don't have to pay rent. In Washington, they just moved it to December. Our state contracts pay rent.
And I need to tell you this, for all you who are worrying about squatters or this kind of difficult population, we do not have landlord-tenant relationships. we are legally protected by the state of Washington laws that since we are a level 2 recognized by the state of Washington recovery home certified by Walker, the national affiliate of NAR, that the fee that's coming in every month is not rent. It's not rent, landlord tenant. It is you're paying for a fee called clean and sober recovery level 2 housing. And therefore, if you are not with the program, then you're not working out, on the rare occasion we've actually had to call somebody and have them removed. But we've never had a squatter.
No.
Okay, more than 3 or 4 or 5 days, but that's so rare. So that's the other benefit. So now all of a sudden during the pandemic, when a lot of people have said, like in Seattle, you don't have to pay rent and it's illegal to evict people. Well, guess what? This is a wonderful business we're in because we've actually thrived. We've thrived and we've grown. And where else are these people going to go if there's a big recession? They, for $650 on the self-pay and $700 to $800, they're happy where they're at. They don't want to go anywhere.
No.
So it's a good, safe business to be in.
I've read everybody's comments and all the personal ones. It's so good to see you guys. And I see some people have had a hard stop at 1 o'clock. So I want to make sure any questions you have, put them in the chat box, or, Jacob can unmute you. Raise your hand and he can unmute you. And we can.
They can unmute themselves. I give them the power. They can interrupt you anytime they want. Go on, everybody.
Oh,
yeah, we'd love any questions you got. We'd love to answer them.
Go ahead. This is about you guys and what we can do to help you. So if you want to, unmute and ask a question or type it in, please do.
I have a question, actually. I would love for you guys to get to talk about this because I think this is fabulous what you're doing. And we haven't even touched on it yet. So what you guys have talked about your model, which is amazing, and we can learn all about that even more on your website, sharedhousingsolutions.com. Make sure you are going to that and subscribing to that channel, watch what they're doing. But Frank and Sherri have also created a way to invest with them through syndication, which they've been working tirelessly on throughout this entire pandemic. Frank, Sherri, you need to talk about that. That was the point. Come on. Tell us the good news. Get on it.
Our syndication, yes.
The biggest problem we have buying these houses is that down payment, that doggone down payment. We know if we had the money, we could open up 100 houses. So Sherri came up with a plan.
I'm going to do another thing. You guys all remember Dennis Blitz?
Dennis Blitz from the IRA Club.
So we are now, you can invest in our housing via iraclub.org. And we have a syndication. So we're raising $5 million. And we're going to, you have to be a qualified investor to go right into the syndication. And on our Shared Housing Solutions website, that tells you what that is. But if you're not a qualified investor, Dennis will take your money. He told us that. In fact, he's going to start promoting us heavily. And we're on Investor Row. Yeah, Dennis will always take your money. So, but we love the idea that there's 2 ways to invest with us, either directly through our syndication model or through Dennis with IRA Club. And this is passive investment. So here's how it works, is you provide $50,000 or $100,000, you get 10% return. And if we hold it for 2 years, we're throwing an extra 5% per year on, so 15% per year. And we're going to use that money to expand here in Seattle and Washington State to buy more houses. And we're definitely going for our veterans. We have a steady stream of people who are justice involved, but a lot of our veterans are justice involved too. And it just doesn't seem fair to me that people develop stress, PTSD, or addiction because of going off to war to protect our country. And we've had an endless stream of war for the last 20 years, coming back and finding out they can't get work, and especially in light of the pandemic. The unemployment has been, as you know, off the charts. And somebody put a link, in here towards the unemployment numbers. And Joanna, I love this comment. I'm so glad to be reminding you of why we invest. To be honest, I don't think there's any doggone reason to buy a home and throw a family in it, because you know what? It's stacked against you. It's really stacked against you. And if I ever thought that was the case is, first of all, landlord-tenant laws definitely are weighted in the favor of the tenant. With the pandemic, especially here on the West Coast, they have made it impossible to move anybody on. You know, I hear people all the time saying, I'm not paying rent even though they're working because of the eviction law is in moratorium. There was a landlord in Oregon and California, I think it was Oregon, who put an eviction notice on apartments, and he was sued for several $100,000 by the state. So there's never been a worse time to be renting to single families. But what we are, and this is critically important, is that we are a program. We are a program of what you want to call it, a program of recovery. We're a program of shared housing. We're a program of lifting people up. It doesn't matter who the people are. When you are a program, you're under different regulations. Nobody has come to us at all since March to say that they weren't going to pay rent because of an eviction law. You know, instead, what happened for a few people who lost their jobs, all our people in the restaurant business, we said, we have a list of charities that will pay your room charge, give them a call. And people mailed us checks. So it's just, we feel we have de-risked the idea of owning real estate by doing what we do. And now the question from Irene,
and even more, I'm sorry, I just want to jump in on that, which is so also incredible, is what you were able to create was a way for community to invest. And when during this pandemic, when people have felt so powerless, and everything that they had in their everyday life was taken away from them, they couldn't go to work, they couldn't go to the grocery store without fearing for their life. Everything was so risky. But when you have the ability to actually support one another and do some good in the world, that has made the biggest difference. Even beyond just having the houses, it's more that you can create a community where everyone else just felt isolated and alone. It had so many layers, and people want to give back. There were so many investors that I do know that are well-to-do that decided that instead of just kicking people out, they wanted to help. They were going and feeding homeless and paying people's rents, like you guys were saying. They want to give back. And it's so inspiring. It gives you faith in humanity again. People want a second chance. They want to do good. And if you believe people are inherently good, this is the business model for you.
right. You know, one of the things, you know, I wonder if anybody could type it in the box. I thought this was really interesting. What changed for you in 2020? What would you never have imagined yourself saying in 2019? You say everything, you know, I can't go out without a mask. I can't go to the fitness center anymore. I had to buy a Peloton bike in my house. Exactly. And you can come to my house, but you can only stay in the backyard, and you have to sit 6 feet from me, and Jeffrey Head knows all about that because he visited me. Stay at no school. You know, we actually have custody of our grandchildren who are ages 2 and 4, which is why it has taken us so long to get on Investor Party, because this wouldn't happen if the kids were home from school, and they didn't go back till June 1. You know, so we had 2 babies at home, and we were trying to work and run our foundation, and I told you our business doubled. I mean, think about the things that have changed, and I love that, no school, stay at home, everything. Imagine for us where I'm still a patent attorney. I work half-time. I chose to go half-time 2 years ago. My job didn't stop. We're actually working on a therapeutic for COVID. I wrote 2 patents yesterday at the kitchen table while the kids watched Blippi, and you who are parents know who I'm talking about. But for so many people, their life stopped. They lost their income. My daughter, Kate, who this was all about, has been clean and sober with a 3-year-old for years now, because I put her in high quality housing in San Diego. She was making $80,000 a year driving for Lyft. She can't drive Lyft anymore because she has that 3-year-old. She has a degree as a medical assistant. She was starting nursing school. That was her goal in March. Can't do that right now with the 3-year-old. You know, she's down in California. You know, so I look at her, I'm going, here is somebody who fought really, really hard to get rid of addiction, to have a normal life, did everything possible, goes to a meeting every day, 25 years old, sweetest kid in the world. And this world crushed her. And so think of all the people you know. You know, if we're somewhat mentally together, I remember telling Frank in June, we were sitting on the couch because Washington was the last, we have the most stay-at-home orders here, the longest and the most restrictions here in Washington state of the country. And I said, if I'm going stir crazy and I'm nervous, and I'm also in medicine for my entire 30-year career, and I think this is scary, what about all those people that don't even have jobs right now or homes or knowledge, and they're getting their information off of Facebook? You know, I mean, just think about it. So it's up to us as human beings to figure out how we're going to lend a hand. And I saw the question about the elderly, and I'm going to answer that because we actually used to teach that. For elder care in every state, typically your community college has a usually 6-week class. It's usually an adult education, super cheap, $200 or $300, where you learn state laws because they're unique to all 50 states. And it's either adult family homes or residential assisted living. You take that class and they tell you what the standards are for your state and how to get into that field. Or you could do a step down, and the step down is, you know, you just do a Golden Girls or Golden Boys home. You know, just people who are
Before
widows.
that stage, yeah.
Before that stage, widows or widowers. You know, those are different ways to getting into elder care. You know, typically when we have given a seminar on this, we get 30 to 40 groups of people that you can co-house, and we've met people who do that. One of my personal favorites is crash pads for airline pilots. And we asked our airline flight attendant about it, and she goes, oh yeah, I'm paying $500 a month to sleep in a bed in a bunk room in New York City because the airline won't pay for a hotel consistently, which makes sense. Hard to get in and out of New York. You can't always guarantee it. And plus so many of them are per diem, like you're flying tomorrow. So there's so many different ways to do a shared housing model. And people asked us what happened to our Airbnb. It's not empty for months and months and months. The pandemic funds from taking in those homeless guys with tape on their feet covered the cost. Mm-hmm. But we just, I think it was middle of July, we were allowed to rent it again. And it's been rented almost every single day since, because what is coming back. And Brian Chelsky, CEO of Airbnb, says people are now going to Airbnbs over hotels so they don't have to touch elevators. And we went with a new property management company who's affiliated with Marriott Hotel. So we've got all these good seal of approval, good housekeeping seals of approval on cleanliness and sanitary procedures. And so we're actually making twice as much money in the Airbnb as we did a year ago. It doesn't mean we didn't lose money from March to July. We did. But at least now we're finding out that people are driving and doing staycations and going close to home. So we always used to say, you deserve a treat. If you're going to do a short-term rental, make sure it's someplace that you want to go, that you would like to vacation. And in fact, we spent the whole month of May down there, and we drove with the kids for 2 days.
That's good advice. Our advice is get one Airbnb. I know somebody, they went out about 4 Airbnbs, a huge investment, spent a ton of money getting them ready, when they're just about to start filling them up, and no one's coming. And imagine that brutal thing around your neck of having to pay all those mortgages. So what this whole thing did for us was it validated our business model. This is a business model. And more than ever, we realize that we've got to diversify. And here's the other thing. Be like us. Stay up all night, or when you wake up in the middle of the night, think about, how can I buy a beautiful home, and all I need, I'm next to a city with 3 million people. Can I find 8 people with a commonality? Maybe widowers who want to meditate and do yoga in the same house. Maybe triathletes who want to spend 6 months, training together. I mean, just come up with all kind of ideas. Maybe a clean and sober house near a fire station, because a lot of those guys have some PTSD. And think up some creative ways to fill that house of 4 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms. I just love it. You'll never see us buy a house and just put a single family in there. We're always thinking of how we can increase our return.
And I have to do a big shout out to Josh and Dustin.
Josh, I miss you.
I see your comments.
Congratulations on your wedding. Oh, actually, Josh was in.
He stayed at our condo.
He stayed at our condo.
And he just
You might as well stay there. No one else was staying there and paying for it.
I have to let you know something, Josh. I personally went out and bought new sheets for you guys and cleaned that condo for you because we didn't have a cleaning service. And I stayed in San Diego an extra day.
Oh,
Down there. I said, I
amazing.
gotta make sure those condos are ready for Josh. I was like, I even took a video of myself like sweating. I said, it's gotta be.
That was a wonderful gift. Thank you. And the card you left for us, that was wonderful.
Oh, I'm so glad. Isn't it?
We'll stay there again, I'm sure.
Oh, we want you to. We totally want you
But
to.
it's a nice location. It's a beautiful place, right?
Oh, it's perfect.
Frank and Sherri started learning how to buy real estate, that we'd be plopping down money for $1 million condo.
Well, we were pretty sorry about it in March. Let me tell you that.
We like the idea of one Airbnb.
Yeah, the rest is shared
The
housing.
rest is going to be shared housing.
And
It was perfect. It was perfect and beautiful. We can't thank you
Oh,
enough.
there you go.
I love
And the
it.
pizza across the street was
Oh, my
amazing.
goodness. I
The
know.
best pizza.
Oh, it is. So
I love that you went straight for pizza on your honeymoon after starving yourself forever to get ready for your wedding twice
That's right.
because you had to postpone. I can just imagine you like going like mouth
Shoving it.
deep on some stuffed
Yes,
crust. Oh, that
I
sounds amazing.
was.
Oh my god.
Yeah, pizza, ice cream, pasta. It was every day. Hence my COVID-19 came on after everybody else's.
Oh, I lost 13 pounds in COVID. You
Good
probably
for you.
watched that.
I found it.
Well, try starting a nonprofit in a global pandemic. Your stress level will just melt your weight off, girl. It is wonderful. I can't see, like, my doctor's worried about me, but I feel fantastic.
So as we're kind of closing up, does anybody have any questions? You know, open your mics and just
Or
ask.
comments?
I have one question, and then I'm going to let it go, but I want to ask this before I forget. And this is because no one else is doing this quite like you guys. I'm like trailing behind in the wake that you guys have created, which has been amazing. And you're always going that much further, but I'm never going to catch up, which I'm fine with. I'll gladly let you pave the way, and I'll come behind you and see what's going on. Yes, that's wonderful.
You're so
my
young.
question is-
You're so young. You can afford it. So.
Oh, I have the most amazing people helping me. They're just, this has been a community effort. It really has been amazing. And I can't believe you guys did this, just the two of you. It's so great to have. I'm so glad you guys have each other. I never talk about Frank without Sherri or Sherri without Frank. You're like the same, you know, it's like you're one entity. But my question for you guys is, do you
Like
think
Brad and
because,
Angelina, but they both broke up.
well, yeah, I mean, let's be honest, she probably had a safety word and he didn't want to hurt her. So they had to go their separate ways. But anyway, what I want to know, this is not a PC show, but my thing is, do you think that the fact that you guys have grown so quickly has been because of the fact that you are doing something so big beyond you? That the universe is just waiting for someone like you guys to come and say, hey, do something better. And you guys have grown so fast.
Yeah.
It's so much faster than people doing flips or wholesaling or single family home.
Hey, where's
Do you think that's why?
I want that. Participants. Oops.
One of the things I always put BHAG after every big, hairy, audacious goals. And it was after we had about 3 or 4 people who were homeless. And we're looking at these beautiful women. One had been a suburban housewife, and she had surgery and became addicted to heroin after her Percocet. And I said, we've got to end homelessness for vulnerable people. And one thing we have learned is people prey upon the poor. And you're poor if you don't have a home. You're poor if you don't have a job. You're poor if you have a record, you know, of any type whatsoever. And it's so easy. I just feel like it's so easy for your world to blow up. And it can happen so easily. But we do think, because we have that big, hairy, audacious goal, that we were going to have housing throughout the country, or our model of housing. And one of the things I've always said is people are not disposable. And they treated Kate, my daughter, as a disposable unit. She wasn't a person. If you put an 18-year-old out at 2 a.m. because you've decided she doesn't fit into your Oxford house anymore, where does she go? She went to a bus stop and some stranger picked her up. Turned out it was a nice man who called me 2 days later, but she could have been dead. And how many times? So that really drives us. People are not disposable no matter what they've done or where they come from. And when we give that message, it just seems that doors open up for us. Because I told Frank, what are the odds like we're going to have to wipe out every bit of savings we have to keep this Airbnb, this $5,000 a month expense down in San Diego going for months and months and months? Because nobody knew how long it would be in March. And then all of a sudden we get a call saying, well, the judge said, take as many men out of jail as you can and give them to Kate's. The same day, judges. So we said, fine, you know, in the past, we'd always screen people. We don't screen anymore. We just take whoever they send us, and we found out, guess what? They do it as well as the people we screen.
One thing we learned is, and what a luxury this is, my whole 34 years career, and I'm telling you, it was a tough work, a lot of travel, a lot of brutal work. And I'd have to strategize, how am I going to survive the bosses that are trying to bring me down and the customers and this and that. All Sherri and I do is we wake up every day and say, how can we serve more people? We don't say, how are we going to afford it? We don't say, how are we going to come up with more money? We say, how can we serve more people? We move forward and magic just happens for us. And the same is going to happen to you. From the first day we housed our first person who'd be homeless, I'll tell you, I am more spiritual by 1,000 times than I ever used to be in a believer. So anyway, there's nothing like...
Before Jacob gets back on the line to be able to ask more questions, my name's Jessica. I don't think I've formally met y'all yet, but I'm opening the second house here in Colorado Springs of Jacob. I'm actually here with Pamela right now. We're driving around. Say hi. Hello.
Hey, hello.
And so you can see all the beds that I have in the back that we just kind of picked up from different people. Yeah, I totally agree with what you said about. I totally agree with what you said about once you kind of start giving back and you start feeling a lot of that, it's you really just want to keep doing it because you really feel. I don't know. It's just the feeling you get from it is amazing.
It's a high. It's a high just going around, and people are so willing to give to help.
Absolutely. And I have a ton of questions because I'm really opening the first house here. It's my first house and Jacob's second, so I have a ton of questions. But
we had a student open up
here, talk some other time. Say that again.
I was going to say we had a student who's opened up Colorado, and and doing very.
Oh wow.
I think the thing to remember is so great. The need is so great. There's no such thing as a saturated market. The need is so great. The vulnerable populations and all the organizations that have a housing specialist who are their job is to get online and try to find a place for this guy and this guy and this guy. And what we say is, no, don't bring them to us. Bring them to us. And once your reputation gets so good because you're quality and you have integrity and fiduciary responsibility, all of a sudden you rise way above all the other housing providers, and you'll have no loss of residents coming your way.
It's amazing that you don't even have to advertise. You just say something. It's I've spent no money on advertising or marketing. I don't have to. It's that the needs are that great. It's humbling, very humbling.
Just $25,000 a month that some people spend on advertising.
It's insane. But I love what you're doing with the syndication idea, the syndication model, putting that into buying the homes that actually have a purpose. People want to get to them, so it's so much easier to furnish and paint and remodel because people want to do something for their community. It's just, you can do so much more. It's funny because I remember when you guys started teaching this, the misconception was you had to have money to do what you were doing. Yeah. And there were other mentors and people saying that and just dissuading them because they did not understand what you guys were doing and the power behind what you were doing. And that's the difference between investing for money and investing with passion and with purpose and a heart. It is absolutely incredible. And guys, you are two beautiful lights in a very dark world. We are so blessed to have you here. And I wish I could give you hugs in person. I love you so much. I owe so much.
I love you too. Virtual hugs to everybody. guys for giving us your time. I always say to people the most precious thing you can give to somebody is time, attention. And so we're grateful for that.
Try to go to our KatesHouseFoundation.org and look at our short videos. They'll make you tear up and cry.
And register with us at sharedhousingsolutions.com and get on our mailing list and get for free.
Now, if you're in town, come visit us.
Yeah, you can come see us in Seattle.
So, yeah, I'm going to make sure, I think we might just make a field trip out there. Why not? We're doing so many fun things. Why not?
I would love
So
it.
let me go ahead and make some quick announcements for you guys, if you don't mind. Shared Housing Solutions is going to be having their first training in October. We are going to be sending out a link to that. Do you remember the date exactly, Sherri?
10th.
The 10th? My birthday?
Oh, that was my mom's birthday. Oh my gosh.
That's my birthday. Yes. So we want to support that any way we can. And I'll be in touch with you guys and everybody else in the group. Be watching Investor Party. We will be sure to plug this training. It is going to be fantastic. Be ready. And don't only just come for yourself. Bring people who you want to invest with to see that there's a better way of doing this. Bring them to the training, enroll with them, register them. Let's make this country better. There's enough going on. We don't know what's going to happen come November. That does not matter because people need our help today. So let's go ahead and make a difference now.
And so just
second thing.
I was going to say, we're going to give tours of our houses too. So come to Seattle.
And it's gorgeous there during the fall. Why shouldn't we go? And Frank and Sherri are amazing hosts.
Well, we're losing you.
And I'll be the host of the most. So it's going to be great time for all of us. So, next thing is being a party host. Go ahead and join Investor Party.
Is this helping? Can you hear me now?
Can't hear you.
Oh, damn it. Really?
All right, well, I guess we're not going to find Jacob back for a minute, but join us, investorparty.com, and Frank and Sherri, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Join investorparty.com.
Yes,
Okay.
investorparty.com.
We had a wonderful time. We had a wonderful time. So nice to be so loose instead of so rigid and worried about perfection, and just being able to share our story. And you guys, thanks
Thank
so
you
much.
guys so much. Thanks
Stay in contact. Stay in contact.
You know how to reach us. Take care. Bye.
No? Yes? No?
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. Everybody have a good weekend.
That help? No? Yes? No? Yeah.
Oh, that's not a good hair day for me.
If anyone can hear,
I miss you guys already.
Bye. Have a good minute.
All right, bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
make sure you're following us this week to see us open our new home.